ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिकानंद राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी शुभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपरिष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्रघुनाथ स्वामी। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपरिष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवादी पाश्चात्य तम करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं। हरि ओम तत्सत्। हरे कृष्ण। So I'd like to welcome all of you. Today is an auspicious day, actually double auspicious, because today is the Akshay Tritiya Tithi. Actually, technically, in ISKCON, we are celebrating the Akshay Tritiya Tithi tomorrow. And the reason for that is the Akshay Tritiya Tithi began, at least in KL. I'm not sure exactly about India timings, but perhaps it is true also. Started in the late morning and goes on into the late morning tomorrow. So technically, at the time of sunrise tomorrow is Akshay Tritiya. But right now, the Tithi of Akshay Tritiya is going on. So it doesn't matter, you observe today, tomorrow, but what the calendar we follow, we meaning Gaudiya Vaishnava, because that's our primary identity is as followers of Lord Chaitanya. So in that sense. But nonetheless, we are in the Tithi, so it is very auspicious. Very special day, one of the most auspicious days in the year. It is said that one of the 3.5 Tithis where you don't need to consider any other astrological combination. And the whole day is auspicious. The whole Tithi is auspicious. You can do. You can observe any function anytime. Right? For example, during marriages and other things, they see Muhurta, auspicious time. Okay, only this time you have to do, because after this, this plan, this combination is not good, that combination is not good. But Akshay Tritiya is said to be so potent. So, of course, there are many reasons for that. I don't intend to go into the discussion of Akshay Tritiya, because then that whole class will be on that, because there are so many auspicious occasions. But I just want to mention a few. It is considered the beginning day of Treta Yuga. It is considered, it is the appearance Tithi of Lord Parshuram, incarnation of the Lord. It's also the day, I believe, the Ganges came down. And there are many numerous others. I sent one list of reasons. Then after that, I got one more list, which had twice as many reasons. So, and for me, there is one more reason, because my younger son Ram was also born on Akshaya Tritiya. So, but that is a personal reason. That is not for everybody to celebrate necessarily. But he was also born noon of Akshaya Tritiya, 17 years ago. So anyway, also it happens to be, of course, all over the world, but in Malaysia we call it Hari Raya. So Hari Raya is the Eid in different parts. The Eid, the Ramzan Eid, as what is known in India. So in Malaysia, it is known as Hari Raya. And technically and literally, and the Malaysians can correct me, Hari Raya means the big glorious day, the big day. So Raya is the connotation for Hari means day, and Raya means special, glorious, great. So actually, Akshaya Tritiya is indeed Hari Raya, because it is a very special, glorious day. It happens to come together. It's not that every Hari Raya is Akshaya Tritiya. So it's good in that way. Various, when our Muslim brothers are also observing their various rituals. So one thing about Akshaya Tritiya, before we get into the chapter proper for today, is that whatever activities, Akshay means that which is never diminished, in very simple words. Kshaya means decay, reduction. So whatever activities are started today will produce long-term imperishable effects in our lives. So this is the day when oftentimes individuals choose to embark on auspicious undertakings of various types. It could be business, it could be personal, it can be spiritual. So if some of you want to say, oh, from today I will at least read one shloka of Bhagavatam or one page of Srimad Bhagavatam every day. That is Akshay, eternal unlimited benefit. So today, is a good day. Whatever you want to do, you want to increase your chanting of rounds by one more. Let's say you're chanting 4. From today, Akshaya Tritiya, I will do 5 rounds. It's a very good occasion. It's a good occasion to feed and serve cows. It's a good occasion, of course, any devotional service for that matter. Giving charity is considered especially good. Receiving charity is also good. But of course, we don't want to wait for somebody to come and give us any charity. We don't consider ourselves worthy of receiving. But yes, whatever way we can serve Guru, Vaishnavas, Brahmanas, the needy, the cows, the poor, and serve the Lord and the devotees. It is a wonderful day. So you have up to, at least in Malaysia, I think it's up to 10:17 a.m. tomorrow, if I'm not wrong. I just checked this is the Kuala Lumpur calendar, but you can check your local Panchanga. See up to what tithi. So if you have missed and it is too late for today, you still have tomorrow morning. But check your local calendars. Jai. So Akshaya Tritiya ki Jai. So for me, the benefit is whatever I'm speaking today is also within the Akshaya Tritiya tithi. So, and whatever you're hearing is also, because actually speaking or hearing doesn't matter. It's a matter of absorption. I was listening to this very wonderful, small YouTube shorts. Nowadays, it's good, this whole YouTube shorts, everybody is very, as our attention span is reducing, YouTube video sizes are also reducing. And this Kali Yuga progress. Previously, people, 1 hour, then, after that, 15-20 minute videos became very common. Then, Prabhu, not more than 5 to 7 minutes. Nobody sees more than 5 to 7 minutes. And nowadays, Prabhu, 30 seconds. After that, they will flick the finger and go to the next video. So whatever you want to say, you have to, quickly tell them. So anyway, so what to do? That is the sad state of affairs in Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga, by the way, is just beginning. So you can imagine what will happen. Actually, we cannot imagine what will happen as it proceeds. So, so today is an auspicious day, and Sorry, what was I about to say? I lost track of what I was. One thing that I wanted to say. Uh, anyway,
You wanted to say something from YouTube.
yeah, YouTube, yeah. So thank you, Prabhu. So there was a YouTube short. I forgot the name of the Maharaj from UK. I think S.B. Keshav Maharaj, if I'm not wrong. I may have the name wrong. So he said very nice thing. He said that sometimes as devotees, we think that just because we are busy with service, we are Krishna conscious. Of course, some of us may not even be busy with service, so that is even worse. But what you are saying is being busy in service by itself doesn't mean becoming Krishna conscious. Being Krishna conscious means being absorbed. Huh? Absorbed in what? Absorbed in Krishna. Krishna consciousness, being absorbed. So it is possible, and why he said that is, it is possible, and sometimes what happens is we are so busy with activities, even seva related activities, but we are not Krishna conscious. Huh? Of course, that will purify us also because it is connected to Krishna, but the real benefit we get when we become absorbed. So absorption is a very essential ingredient. In fact, Krishna consciousness means absorption. And why I was mentioning this is, even in terms of the Tithi today and whatever Katha we are discussing today, the benefit that we will get, and especially it being Akshaya Tritiya, doesn't matter whether I am speaking, you are listening, the more benefit we will get based on how absorbed we are. That was the point that I was trying to make. Now I recollected. Memory. So always remember, that's a even japa, absorbed in the holy name. Attention, and then after we are attentive, then the next stage is affection. Because we don't want to call out to Krishna, like, oh, some third person there. We want to call him as the beloved of our heart, affectionately. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. But at least we should begin with at least absorption in the sound. And gradually it will go into absorption in the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of it. Anyway, so today's class is focused on the 11th chapter of the 5th canto. We are discussing the pastimes of Jada Bharat, especially this third lifetime of Bharat Maharaj, Deer, and then Jada Bharat, where he got the birth of a Brahmana. And we've discussed all that. I don't want to go into too much because otherwise we'll not be able to complete the chapter. But we are at that episode where, as Jada Bharat, he's traveling around the world and he was forcibly recruited like a draft. People who are not in the army are forcibly drafted into the army. The Vietnam War Americans just drafted. Come, we need one palki carrier. Come. So he was forcibly. And he did not protest. He was saying, okay, Krishna has some purpose, and Krishna indeed had a purpose. See, this is how, sometimes we get dragged into things we never asked for and we are wondering, why we are being pulled into this mess. But if we cooperate with Krishna's plan, now your cooperate doesn't mean that anybody who's dragging us into mess, we should happily go into the mess. That is not what it means. Yeah, we have to use our intelligence. But when we are forcibly placed into circumstances which are beyond our control, we must understand that Krishna has some special plan. So he was so indifferent to bodily considerations, respect, disrespect. He was just carrying the palki, but being so compassionate at heart, he was avoiding stepping on any ants. And in the process, the palki ride, rather than becoming a Mercedes or a Rolls Royce like smooth ride, very good shock absorbers, it became like a very old. I don't know if I take any car's name, then the car will get offended. I don't know whether I should take a very old cars. They'll become brand aparad. A very old car, boom, boom, boom. It goes over the bumper. So he was getting unsettled and he was getting angry. And then we discussed how there was this interaction between Rahugana and Jada Bharat. And at one point, Jada Bharat, initially he was not bothered about responding to the king, but understanding that the king is of noble character, Jada Bharat decided to respond not with a desire to prove his point. I am smart, I know you are stupid, you are conditioned, I am self-realized, not like that, but with compassion so that he may be able to benefit the king. So very beautifully, but very briefly, he answers some points. And Rahugana, when he hears those points, he's like, he was thinking here is some, stupid person who's not cooperating, and suddenly, he's speaking profound philosophy. And he knew enough to understand this is a transcendentally realized person. He was not self-realized. He knew enough. Correct? See, we are not very advanced. But when we come across an advanced personality from their speech, we understand, this person is from a different level altogether. At least that much he knew. If you're not even that much spiritually educated, you will think what Jada Bharat is saying as some foolish ranting. But he understood. He got down from his chariot. He fell down at the feet. He did Dandavad to Jada Bharat, and he asked him, please, who are you? What are you doing here? Whose son are you? Are you some self-realized soul? Are you some devata? Are you what? And then he put a few questions, and I'll not go into that. And then there were some brief responses by Jada Bharat. And this particular chapter, the chapter we are discussing today, chapter 11, is a continuation of that conversation where the Brahmana Jada Bharat is further enlightening the king. Actually, the chapter is very small. The chapter is only 17 verses. I don't know, perhaps maybe the smallest. I don't know whether it's the smallest chapter, but it is one of the very, very small chapters. I am not very sure which one is the smallest in the entire Bhagavad. Small, 17 shlokas. That is, I don't recollect so far any chapter with 17 shlokas. And this particular chapter, there is no story. It is just instruction. It's very beautiful instruction. It's an instruction where very briefly in 17 verses, Jada Bharat gives the summary of spiritual understanding, Maharaj Rahugana. In fact, as I was studying this particular chapter, somehow I could always, I was feeling a strong correlation between Krishna's advice to Arjuna in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita and this particular chapter. Why? I will highlight some of those similar thoughts as we proceed. So as Jada Bharat opens his conversation, because Rahugana is countering, you are saying like this, but what you are saying is not very convincing to me, because what you are saying seems to be, not practical or not really, this is not how the world works. This is the perpetual problem between the conversations between spiritualists and materialists. The thing is, what is logical to one person may be illogical to the other, and what is illogical to that person may be perfectly logical to us. And why it is like that, and this is there not just between materialists and spiritualists, but within various groups of materialists also. Because what is logical or not logical depends on our worldview, our paradigm. If our paradigm, the paradigm that we are living in this world is I am this body and giving all happiness to the body is what real good fortune is about, and that is what is desirable, then from that paradigm, if we want to analyze logically what is good, what is bad, it will be a very different calculation from those who are deeply embedded in the paradigm. Actually, not at all my body. Body is just an external covering. Isn't it? You understand what I'm saying? So that's why sometimes, these conversations for a spiritually advanced person to communicate to a material person, sometimes, to bridge that gap becomes challenging. And usually it's a very difficult conversation unless the person who's at the lower level of consciousness actually takes a surrendered position. Like Arjuna took, like King Rahugana took. Please, you enlighten me, you instruct me. Arpanya doshopahat swabhava prachami tvam dharma samyaya yashrayasya nishita bruhi karne shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapanna. Because if one doesn't take that position, one will be closed in his false paradigm and will not be able to understand and relate to what is actually being spoken. And the first thing that Krishna did to Arjuna, the same thing Jada did to Rahugana. What did he do? The first thing he told him is, you are a fool. You are acting as if you are very learned. So sometimes you may think, oh, this is such a odd way to open a conversation. He's instructing him, but and please do not copy this style. This style has to be applied by certain people in certain situations only. Krishna did this. I will also start. I will start by telling you are a fool. And yeah, you can say that when you become self-realized. Don't start now, because right now we are also fools. So it is one fool talking to another, only that this fool, which is me, has had the good fortune of hearing from a self-realized soul and repeating it. That's all. So let us not immediately take the position of a self-realized person and call another person a fool. Because the reality is we also haven't realized all these things. Work in progress. We are still being baked in the oven of spiritual life. We have not become a cake yet. Only the ingredients have been put in. Slowly it will take time. You have to burn in the oven for a long time. Anyway. So Rahugana is also told first by Bharat, Jada Bharat. Oh king, you are speaking as if you are very learned, a very experienced person. Actually, you are not at all experienced. Why? Because a truly experienced person would never speak the way you have spoken just now. Exactly, this is what Krishna tells Arjuna. You are speaking as if you are learned, but what you are speaking is not the words of a learned person. Why he speaks like this? Because sometimes it is important to start the conversation by making the recipient of knowledge know you don't know anything. Please erase your slate first. Keep your entire paradigm on the side. You try to evaluate my words based on your paradigm and your logic, nothing will enter your head. Just keep everything aside, open your mind, clean your slate, take notes. Whatever I tell you, you must. It's a different logic. You understand? Because, I mean, this is done to help them, not to put them down. Because an experienced person, he says, will not speak the kind of language you spoke. Master, servant, ruler, pleasure, pain. This shows actually you are in a different paradigm. You're not actually experienced, because experienced, what does experience mean here? A person who has actually understood the real nature of the world. Vriddha. Vriddha means experienced person. Elderly. Elder what? Not just in a bodily way, but really experienced. They're mature in life. That's why you see those who are elder, really experienced people, they're very sober. I'm talking even from a material sphere. Even if they are not yet become self-realized, they become sober because they understand. Material nature will really whack, whack, whack. Cannot just dance and jump and do whatever. You'll get really whack. You have to be really sober. So you seem to be, you are speaking as if Kovida Vadan. Very learned. But you're only talking about mundane subjects. Yavaharam. And this is again that important point which I say so many times, that the real inner consciousness of a person is revealed when he opens his mouth. Sometimes even a great soul is very difficult to understand, just like in this case also, right? He couldn't understand just by seeing. So that this Jada Bharat is a very advanced soul. He understood as soon as he opened his. Correct? I had this experience, and I'm not in any way trying to glorify myself. But I had this experience a few times where in my college or at my workplace, normally I will just be engaging with them with a normal mundane transactions of the school or the job. But sometimes some spiritual topic may come up. And then I'll open my mouth. And when they hear, they become overwhelmed. This person. No, I'm not saying that I'm great. I'm just saying that knowledge, they become so overwhelmed by that knowledge. What we thought of this Kamlesh and what he is very different. One day I remember in my first job, I was just walking and a couple of my colleagues were walking behind me. One of them was telling the other person, hey. And I overheard this, and he was not telling me. They were both behind, but I could overhear that this person is what he seems to be. Is something different. Of course, we are fortunate because we have got this knowledge of Gita and Bhagavad. We are simply repeating it. But the point I'm trying to make is that the real inner content becomes revealed. Then one understands what is actually the substance in that person. So the conversation began with this chastisement. And then he starts instructing. Now, this chapter is very philosophical. It has basic philosophy, but a lot of very beautiful nuances. Now, to be honest, I cannot do justice to all the points that are covered. They are very subtle, because some of these points require, these are not subjects that just can be spoken and be understood. And I'm not in any way belittling any of you. For us also, when we are studying, we have to read through it finely and contemplate on it multiple times to understand what is being spoken. Because these aspects, even though they are so basic, they are so fundamental in terms of understanding the paradigm of the spiritual reality vis-a-vis the material world. It requires careful contemplation to actually be able to appreciate it, what to speak of understanding it properly. So, please forgive me. First of all, I'm an ordinary soul. And the second thing is the points here are very profound. So we may not be able to cover in that much depth. So as always, I will encourage you to scrutinizingly study. This is just an overview. Again, this is my repeated request. So Jada Bharat starts saying that, then he starts explaining to King Rahugana the kind of language you are speaking, master, servant, king, subject. You are all describing simply material activities. Those who are simply busy describing these material activities, which are, even though they may be explained in the Vedas, and are just hovering on that platform, even though there may be some religion, piety, some Vedas, some Vedic sacrifices, some pujas and all this, are simply trapped in this duality where all that you are concerned about is body and the benefit of the body. Then no real spiritual advancement can come up. Because even those who study the Vedas, they can also get trapped, because Vedas are also dealing primarily with the three modes. If you remember, Krishna in the second chapter also says this. Raigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjan. I don't know whether this verse is from the second chapter. Look it up. But Krishna tells Arjuna, maybe it's in the third. I think it's in the third. Huh?
Second chapter.
In second, what is the verse number? Raigunya Vishaya. Oh, yeah. It is in the second only. Raigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. Nirdvando Nitya Sattvasto. Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. That even the Vedas deal, because the bulk of the Vedas, we have to understand, the bulk of the Vedas deal with how one should live in the world. And that is good and nice, but that is not the goal. Correct? Just like you enter into a train, plane. A plane is a better example. Remember, whenever you sit in the plane, on the front of you, which is the back of the seat in front, there is a pocket. The pocket, there is something. What is in that pocket? I'm not talking about the vomiting bag. Besides that, what else is there? I'm not talking about the in-flight shopping magazine also.
Safety instructions.
Instructions.
Yeah, there are instructions about basic things about your flight, your belt, your how to be comfortable, safe, and basic instructions with respect to managing your flight. Why? And that is important to have a safe and comfortable flight. But that is not the 2.45. Okay, thank you, Bhaskar. I'm talking about Traigunya Vishaya Veda. That is not. If you think that is the be all and end all of being in a plane, Prabhu, I put my seat belt so nicely, so perfectly, and I'm going on perfecting the art of putting my seat belt. Now I can just do like this and my seat belt opens. So just being comfortable in the flight is not the end goal. One has to know the destination of the flight. That is why one has to go beyond the Vedas into Vedanta. That is where transcendental knowledge begins. Because if one remains trapped in the Vedas, in terms of the ritualistic aspects, even in terms of leading a pious life, and one is still trapped in material activities, one is actually not getting anywhere. One may come to the mode of goodness, but still one is trapped. Trapped in what? I, me, and mine. One still remains in the old paradigm, the material paradigm. There may be some slight refinement, betterment in the old paradigm, but you're still in that paradigm, the false paradigm. Why false? Actually, you're not the body. false paradigm. All logic of that paradigm is wrong. Why wrong? Because you are not what you think you are. That's why it is called Maya. So Vedas are insufficient to take us to transcendental realization. Because one who's actually advanced understand that material happiness is simply like a dream. Just like in a dream, one may sometimes undergo some happy experiences, sometimes one may go bad experiences. But actually, it's not affecting us at all. So that is a good analogy. So similarly, in this material life, even though we may think of the body, and the body may go through so many transformations, and we think we are being affected, but actually we are not. That's why it's like a dream. Then the question may be asked, doesn't ask it, but moving to the next topic, the question may be asked, if this is the case, then why people in general are engaged in material happiness? And Jada Bharat continues to explain this. And he's explaining, and I'm summarizing this, he explains it in a very structured way, but I want to make it a little bit more simpler. The essential thing that Jada Bharat is telling Maharaj Rahugana is, please understand that this mechanism of the body, which is composed by Panchamahabhuta, the earth, water, air, fire, ether, the total 10 senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and 5 action senses, all centered around the mind. This construct, this identity. This is the living entity who's trapped. When this mind is contaminated by the 3 modes because of material association, then this living entity who's conditioned by these 3 modes, he becomes like a mad elephant, Nirankusham. He simply goes here and there, being trapped in material, pious and impious activities, trying to acquire knowledge and experiences through the material senses, which are perceived through the chitta, the mind, exerted through the senses, perceived through the knowledge acquiring senses, and gathered and experienced in the mind. And continuously there is enjoyment and suffering. Because when one is trapped in this paradigm, one is just trying to see what is pleasurable for my body and mind, pleasurable for body and mind. This, oh no, this is bad. Accepting what one thinks is pleasurable and rejecting those things which are unfavorable. And one goes on trying things out and dealing with things which one didn't want but got because of previous impious activities. But one is never satisfied with any of that because none of these are actually touching the real soul, the real self. One is never satisfied. That is why one continues punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayani. So this is the problem. The living entity is trapped. He's explaining to Maharaj Rahugana. This chitta, which is affected by the 3 modes, there are so many impressions of past activities, pious and impious. And because of all these impressions, one is attached to a particular kind of sense enjoyment. One is driven by a particular kind of combination of the modes of material nature. Because of that, different kinds of lust and different kinds of anger can manifest in one nature. But it is the mind which is the central figure in this construct. It is this mind which is actually causing all the problem. The elements by themselves are not causing the problem. The senses by themselves are not causing the problem. It is this impure mind which is your problem. Because this mind has one aspect which is known as the ego. And that ego is causing misidentification. And that is what is covering. That avidya, that ignorance, that misidentification is actually the covering of the jiva. It deceives the jiva to try to find happiness outside, where actually there is none. And one goes on looking for it. Flight after flight after flight, but one doesn't know what is the destination. Because one has forgotten to inquire about the real purpose of what is the purpose of this body. Nayam deho deha bhajam roke kashtan kaman arhati vidbhujan ye. Remember that shloka? You said to whom? Question. Anybody remembers? Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhaye yasmad dharma saukyam tananta. Shabdev said to his sons, his instructions, just few chapters ahead, earlier, that the real purpose of this body is to search for eternal happiness, Brahma Saukyam. And that is why one must restrain one's lower urges and follow the austerity of spiritual discipline so that one can actually head towards a higher life. Otherwise, one will simply be creating unavoidable distress and illusion, will remain deluded. Just go on and on, hoping against hope that he will be happy, he'll be satisfied, he'll achieve some lasting status. But within the three modes, one will be kicked like a football. Can you be in a football match? So let's say you go to a football match and you're hoping that within the football match, the football will be static. The ball will not move. And you're saying, Prabhuji, I'm waiting when the football will be in one place and I can see it nicely at one place. That can only happen before the game and after the game ends. In the middle of the game, the football is continuously being kicked. Here to here, here to here. You have to struggle. The camera person also continuously struggling. Where is the ball? Where is the ball? Where is the ball? Because the nature of the material world is that the interactions of the world will be tossing a materially attached consciousness around like a football. And if we in a deluded condition are identifying ourselves with our body and the mind, we will also be kicked around. Not literally, but because of our false identification, we will be totally deluded and bewildered. So such a mind causes a living entity to go through the samsara. And that is why, oh Rahugana, please understand, it is actually this mind which is the cause of bondage. But also let me tell you one more thing. It is your mind also the cause of your liberation. Now this is a big thing, right? How can the same thing be both a cause of problem and also a cause of liberation? Correct? So immediately he answers that question. And Krishna also gives the same explanation to Arjuna. I mean, not in the same words, but the same similar thing. Anyone remembers what Krishna tells Arjuna? Anyone remembers the verse or at least the translation? Yes.
So it's a karma which Arjuna says karma can bind you and also release you. It's believe in second or third chapter.
The karma doesn't liberate one, but with respect to the mind, very specifically, with respect to the characteristics of the mind, it says this kind of a mind leads to bondage and this kind of a mind leads to liberation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mind is a best friend if you're able to control and greatest enemy.
If it is uncontrolled. Thank you. Yes. Mana eva manushyanam karana bandhana mokshayoh. The mind only is the cause of both bondage and liberation. The mind which is attached is the cause of bondage, but the mind which is detached is the cause of freedom. So the same point is mentioned here with a nice example. It says an attached mind causes bondage. So when the mind is attached to sense enjoyment, when it is bahirmukha, I want this, I want this. The living entity becomes deluded. But when the same mind is detached and is focused inwards towards the Lord and one's relationship with the Lord and tries to see everything in the light of that relationship. Jiver Swarupoy Krishner Nityadas. Krishnasya Tatastha Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. That I am eternally a servant of Krishna. And it is my duty to become his servant. And the mind becomes detached from sense enjoyment and tries to develop the vision that everything is connected to the Lord and for his pleasure. Then that mind becomes the cause of liberation. And that is why across the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam, this is the central teaching, isn't it? Detached from matter and attached to Krishna, isn't it? So please, you can forget everything else. Don't forget this. Forget this, then you will be stuck in the old paradigm. You want to come into the new paradigm, remember this. Detached from matter, attached to Krishna. And he gives a beautiful example. The example he gives is just like a lamp. The lamp, which has a charred wick and has an impure oil, what it does, even though it burns, is actually emits so much soot that the whole lamp becomes black. But the same lamp, when there is ghee in the lamp, the nice clean wick, actually there is no soot. There is just beautiful illumination in all directions. Both are lamps. So there's the mind. The lamp is like the mind. And it is attached to matter, there is soot, blackness everywhere. But when there is pure ghee, which means a pure mind, which is detached, beautiful illumination. That's why we should preferably use ghee lamp to offer to the Lord. Because you can't, then you can use oil, but that is preferred. And then he discusses the functions of the mind. That Bharat is explaining to Maharaj Rahugana. He says that there are 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 working senses, and then there is the false ego. And this false ego is so fundamental to the construct of this material identity. And there are 2 aspects to this false ego. What are they? I and mine. What does I mean? I is related to one's identification, and mine means related to a sense of possessiveness, which is based on the I. Example, if I say, I am Kamalesh, body is Kamalesh, then everything related to the body is mine, which means these are my parents, this is my birthplace, this is my country, this is my this, that, so and so. Everything is my possessiveness is related to the body. But same way, if I transfer that understanding, say, oh, I am a spirit soul, this is just a temporary body, and I am part and parcel of Krishna. If that becomes my identification, then what is the nature of my possessiveness? I am Krishna's. I am his part and parcel, I am his servant. Correct? I am Krishna's. The devotee doesn't think that I want to enjoy Krishna. I think I am for Krishna's service. I am Krishna's. I belong to him. But if one is not situated in such a divine consciousness, one is situated in the materialistic consciousness, the aham mama, janasya mohoyam aham mameti, then within that realm of illusory identification, because of the various combinations of the physical elements, the dravyas, one's nature, the swabhav, one's culture that one has brought about or cultivated, which is known as the ashaya, one's destiny, one's karma, and the time factor. All these material causes, all these things will agitate one's mind, create multiple kind of situations and conditions. How many? Millions upon millions, because they can mix and produce all kinds of situations. Huh? The Bhagavatam says these things, they agitate the functions of the mind, which will transform into hundreds and thousands and millions of variegated kinds of material conditions and experiences, which totally cause the soul to get lost and bewildered. Because as in this ocean of samsara, one is being tossed around, one is still hope against hope, hoping that he will find that lasting happiness, and he never finds. Correct? Huh? The fact that we are still here, how many lifetimes we have been around? Anyone has been counting? Huh? Your japa beads are not adequate to count. Your clicker is also not adequate to count. Unlimited, anadi bahirmukha. We are bahirmukha since unlimited time. We cannot count. But still we are here, which means what? Which means we are not resigned from the job. We are still engaged in the service of Maya. What does that mean? That means we still have some hope. Oh, there is something in this material transformation I haven't seen. That will actually give me happiness. Let me try a little more. Let me try a little more. Like a gambler who's losing one stake after another, but he's thinking, next one I will crack it and I will recover all my losses and make it big. Hope against hope against hope. Durashaya ye bahirartha manina. Dur asha. Asha means hope. Dur means false hope. Prahlad Maharaj says. Those who are looking for happiness outside Durasha. Nate viduswartha gatim bhi Vishnu. They don't know that real happiness, not outside, is inside, being a servant of Vishnu. Nate viduswartha gatim bhi Vishnu. Durashaya ye bahirartha. But even this unlimited possible combinations of experiences within the realm of Maya, it's all possible only because the Supreme Lord in his Paramatma aspect has pervaded this whole creation. He is making all this possible. Correct? That's what Krishna says. I enter as Paramatma in the heart of every living being. Matta smrte jnanam apohanam cha. And only because of me, all memory, remembrance. Oh, you wanted like this? You think you can be happy like this? Okay, let me try to create this situation. Okay, try. Okay, happy? Not happy? Okay. Now you want to try this? Okay. So the Supreme Lord is facilitating everybody, of course, both based on what you desire and what you deserve. Not just we desire, then God is like our servant arranging everything. Not like that. But the Lord is giving us the facility to try to explore the world without Him. That is Maya. But the living entity becomes lost when he is Bahirmukha. But as against his Bahirmukha souls, Jada Bharat is telling Maharaj Rahugana, there are those liberated souls. Those are liberated who can see this mess very clearly. They can understand. There's no happiness. I'm just being tossed around by the modes of material nature. Hope against hope. I am hoping. But actually there is no hope. I have to stop this false hope. Otherwise, I'll just remain trapped in this ocean. They can see things for what they are. This is the beginning. The beginning of the solution is recognition of the problem. If you want to get out of the old paradigm, the first thing you have to realize, I am in a wrong paradigm. This is whole understanding that I can be happy in this construct, that I am the body and happiness to the body will eventually give me some situation which will be a long-lasting, stable, happy situation is false. Can never happen. So then the living entity understands I have to transform my absorption from an absorption in the three modes to an absorption in the Supreme Lord. Who is that Supreme Lord? That Supreme Lord who's transcendental, who's actually all pervading, who's making all these things possible. He's the Supreme Controller, who's the original person. He who's present everywhere and perceiving everything, including my heart. He who's self-effulgent, who's beyond birth, old age, disease, and death. He who controls even all the devatas. That Narayan, who's the shelter of all the jivas, including myself, who's full of all opulences. That Vasudev, who's the resting place for all, and who's present within all of our hearts. He never forgets us, even though we forget him. Just like the air is present within everything and everyone, the form of prana, and makes us alive and allows us to function in all species of life. Pranavayu. Similarly, the Lord in the form of Vasudeva is present within his creation and makes everything possible. He is the knower of everyone and he allows others to know. And he's controlling everything. So I must now be absorbed in him. So he's telling Rahugana, don't remain in that paradigm, otherwise you cannot see things. If you want to actually be learned, like you pretend to be, then switch the paradigm. Otherwise you cannot understand what I spoke. When I was very young, my father is a civil engineer, so I would take some of his civil engineering books. And I don't remember what standard I was. I would take those books and I would open and say, I will read. So I would open the book and I would start reading. And I would go through. And I thought I was understanding. Because I could understand the English. Because I was understanding the English words, I thought, of course, some very difficult words, but still more or less I was able to make some sense of the words. I thought I was understanding because I was understanding the English, but actually I was not understanding anything. Because I could not understand the concept. Because it was far beyond my ability to understand. Because I did not have the basic concepts. How can you understand a very advanced concept? So why I'm saying this is, sometimes we think we have understood, but we are not actually understanding because we are stuck in a different paradigm. We think we have understood just because we can understand the words. And that's why I said at the beginning of this class, the subtlety of these points have to be understood. Otherwise, we can just say, yes, yes, Prabhu, yes, we are trapped, Prabhu, yes, Prabhu, wonderful, we are trapped, yes, we have to go back to Godhead, Prabhu. Because you understood the English. And this is not just for you, it's for me also. But actually, we have not understood anything. How do we know we have not understood anything? Because after this class, we all go back to material enjoyment. So the point is this is why it takes time, because we are so trapped in that paradigm. Slowly, we have to work. We don't have to lose hope. Slowly, it will happen by continually hearing and chanting. We'll gradually get there. 5 minutes more, we will complete the chapter. Only 2 more verses remaining. So we have to transform our consciousness to that Supreme Lord. But as long as the jiva in this world doesn't do that, transferring that consciousness, if he continues to be contaminated by the material modes, he is unable to conquer his 6 enemies. Lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, pride. He will continue to wander in samsara until the point he actually understands this knowledge. He becomes self-realized, not self-knowledge read. self-realized. Reading is a good starting point, but that is not adequate. One has to contemplate, one has to live, then one actually realizes, oh, now I can see how this material world is actually illusory and actually the cause of suffering. That actually my real happiness is in connecting with the Lord. That realization will be the fruit of our sadhana. But as long as one is in the material world, one has to be very careful dealing with the mind, because if we go on sowing wrong kind of desires within this mind, then one will continue with lamentation, illusion, disease, attachment, greed, enmity. As long as aham and mama is there, one has to continue suffering the miserable conditions of samsara. That is why one must do these two things: attach from matter and attach to Krishna. Rahugana is saying. And how to detach? He says two things. One is you must do upeksha, and second thing, you must be apramattaha. Upeksha means the mind, which is currently in the condition still, will go on telling you, I want this, I want this, I want this, this is good, let's go here. This will give you happiness, that will give you happiness. Money, beautiful wife, this, that, fame. So whenever the mind is giving unending commentary from behind, just do upeksha. Upeksha means be indifferent, don't give attention. You cannot stop the chatter of the mind, but if you start not giving it too much importance, eventually the chatter will reduce. And finally it will become quiet. Correct? When sometimes, some friends blabber and you're not really interested in listening to what they're saying. If you give them a lot of attention, they'll become even more excited. But if you start looking here and there, start looking at your phone, not paying attention, just after some time, they'll say, this guy's not interested. They'll slowly tone down, and after some time, they'll change topic. So we have to deal with the mind like that. We have to do upeksha, neglect. And one must be attentive, apramattaha. Attentive to what? Attentive to the understanding of the real paradigm. And what is that actual weapon which will cut us from being trapped in the old paradigm and allow us to move into the new paradigm? It is the weapon of the service to the lotus feet of Guru and the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Gurur Hares Charana Upasana Astraha. That astra you should use. Serving the Guru and the Supreme Lord. So one should neglect the mind, disobey the orders of the mind, and follow attentively the orders of Guru and Krishna. That is the path to transcend. So this doesn't happen overnight, but this is the path that he should. So in that way, Jada Bharat is guiding in 17 verses, and we have completed them. He has given that overall synopsis. This is, you are a fool, first accept it. You are trapped in a wrong paradigm. Why you are trapped? I, me and mine, your false identification. That's why you are talking things. In that paradigm, what you're talking doesn't make any sense in the paradigm of actual reality. From the perspective of a person who's self-realized, who's looking from that paradigm, whatever you're talking seems to be the speech of a madman. Correct? If you go to a mental hospital, you'll see a madman, he may come and say, do you know this whole world was made by me? I am the Lord. You will just, maybe you may not say, but internally you may be laughing. But that's what we are doing in the material world, right? Each one of us is a lord and master of what he surveys. This is what I own. I am this. I am that. You don't know me? Who I am? I am so and so. I have done this. And this is the problem. When two men meet, each one is trying to convince the other how great he is. I'm this, I'm that. And when two ladies meet, they talk about what they have. So my necklace. So this. Aham mama. This is how the conversations become focused. Okay, no disrespect to anyone, if I have offended anyone. But that is the entrapment. Every one of us has this Ishwara Bhava. And that is the cause of our entrapment. So that is the path. By neglecting the mind and by being fixed in the service of Guru and Krishna. And what is the Guru tell us? Follow 4 regulative principles. Chant the holy names. Read the Bhagavatam regularly. Serve the devotees. Worship the Lord. Associate with devotees. Krishna Prasad. So when we follow this path, gradually we'll become disinfected. The contamination will go. We'll replace the old oil with fresh ghee. Put a nice clean wick. Then our consciousness will become illuminated and everything will become clear. Mantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes,
So,
sir.
when Vedanta ends, like, then what begins, Prabhuji? Bhagavatam?
The Vedanta, Bhagavatam and everything is within Vedanta. Vedanta begins with the understanding that I am not the body, I am the spirit soul. Vedanta is within the realm of Vedanta. The beginning of Vedanta is the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You're not the body,
Okay.
which means transcendental subject matter. Beyond the 3
Okay.
modes. The topmost pinnacle of Vedanta is the Bhagavatam. Correct? Huh?
Yeah.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amruta dharma sangitam. The ripened fruit of the Vedic knowledge.
Yeah.
The initial part of spiritual knowledge is like the raw mango, but Bhagavatam is the ripe mango on the tree of Vedic wisdom. Okay?
Yeah, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So the perfection, bahunam janmanam ante jnanamam mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samatma sudurla. So the beginning of knowledge is I am not the body and the spirit soul, but the culmination of knowledge, the topmost is, oh, now I understood, I am part and parcel of Krishna, I am Sarvada. Vasudeva Sarvam. Everything belongs to him. We are all part and parcel. Let us all engage in his devotional service. That is the mature knowledge. That is the culmination of knowledge. So it's all within Vedanta, the culmination of Vedanta. That is why the Bhagavatam is considered the topmost, because it expounds that culmination very clearly without any ambiguity. The other Upanishads are just speaking about the basic. You're not the body, you're the soul. You're this way, that way, trying to analyze. But having understood you are the soul, then the next question is, from where did I come? There is the Supreme Soul. Oh, who's that Supreme Soul? Oh, it is Sri Krishna. And what is my role with him? Oh, I am his eternal part and parcel. So what should I do? My function is service. Oh, I should serve. Now I understood. Correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Tarun, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, there is a question on the Bhagavad Gita Dhyan Yoga, verse 9.
Okay.
Actually, I cannot read that Sanskrit, so it looks like one word
Translation
for
you
one
can
line.
read.
Yeah, translation I can do. So, जब मनुष्य निकष्ट हितैषियों, प्रिय मित्रों, तटस्थों, मध्यस्थों, ईर्ष्यालुओं, शत्रुओं तथा मित्रों, पुण्य आत्माओं एवं पापियों को समान भाव करता है, तो वह और भी उन्नत माना जाता है. Now my question means we are talking about saman bhav here, and we are thinking about papi and punyatma. Means you want to see Krishna in them with the Sambhav, but they are ultimately in return harming you. So how that Sambhav will be developed means it should be mutual, means it cannot be one directional.
So at our level, the samabhav means we understand that everybody is spiritual. we see that like a better example of this principle is the verse where Krishna says that he sees the elephant, cow, dog eater, brahmana, sinful person, the chandal, all and same in what way? Same means he understands that the same soul is situated within everyone and the same Paramatma is situated within everyone. So he understands that essential nature of everything is spiritual. But this doesn't mean that just because he sees a tiger, because he knows the same soul is in the tiger as in the deer, he'll go and embrace the tiger. The tiger will still eat you, even though you understand and you know that the soul is in the tiger. The tiger is still going to eat you because the tiger doesn't know it. You know it. So while you understand what is the essential nature of everything, still at a practical level, you have to deal with everything accordingly so as to function in the right way within the material world. But you don't lose vision of the fact of what is what. Okay, I hope that helps you too. So yes,
Yeah,
from
Prabhuji.
sinful people, if you don't discriminate this person sinful, how will you keep away from them? But that doesn't mean you hate them. You may hate the sin, not the sinner. You understand? Oh, he's also he is trapped now in such a state of consciousness that and he cannot come out of it. But it's better for me to stay away. It's okay. But we do not become envious even of the sinful people. We do not become hateful of them.
Got it, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I have one more question, Prabhuji.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Tarun, go ahead. Yeah.
So this was in context of the non-living entities. Means we generally say, as per the scripture, everything is Krishna and the energies, right? And his energy around you. So if we see stones, if we see in any kind of non-living entity, it's a part of Krishna and the energy, and Krishna is present everywhere. So that means those stones are nothing but some souls, and they are being basically punished to be a stone as a non-living entity, and then they are completing their karmas, and then will come back into as a living entity.
So this material world, Krishna explains in the 7th chapter, is the combination of the para and apara prakriti. So apara is the material nature, earth, water, fire, air, ether. And the apareyas itastvanyam prakritim viddhi me param jiva bhuta mahabaho yedam dharyate jagat are the jivas. So the material world, of course, Paramatma is there everywhere, but the material world is essentially a combination of matter and spirit. And the spirit soul is present practically everywhere, sarvagataha. So the Shastra says there are certain species, certain kinds of karma, where a living entity, the soul, may be attached even to a stone or a mineral. And in that state, he doesn't actually have a functioning body like what we have, because what that means is he's practically like dead. But he's somehow now how exactly that functions, we don't know. At least I don't know. I have not heard anything in detail. But the point is, living entities can be there practically everywhere. So there is no part of creation, and Prabhupada is very explicit, there's no part of creation where living entities are not there. In what exact form, what kind of bodies, we know so little, we may not be able to understand. But the point is that living entities can be connected in some way to such bodies that they are See, just like the human form is a very evolved conscious body. So in this body, the soul can manifest its consciousness to a great extent. But in lower forms, the consciousness becomes more and more sankuchit, contracted. And in very, very, very low forms, it may be possible that one is attached to a mineral or to something which is typically considered non-living. And in some form becomes attached to it, where one's consciousness is practically almost zero. You can say 0.001. What exactly that means, we don't know. He's almost dead, but he's there. So these kind of species are also the possible result of very sinful karma. But does this mean every stone there is a soul? No, we cannot say that. Because by definition, stone, table, chairs, and all these other things are by definition, they are not bodies, or they are not living, they are dead matter. But can a living entity be connected to something like this and take shelter of that material structure for some time based on specific karma? Yes, it is possible. Okay, I hope you get some idea. But typically, typically we don't talk about stone as species, but it is possible that a living entity may be attached to that condition based on certain specific situations and karma. Okay, anything else? Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
From 2 chapters before, what would have done Bharat Maharaj when he saw the baby deer in that situation, miserable condition?
What do you think? What will you do in this
I
situation?
will give you a call to Prabhuji and ask what.
Yeah, maybe Prabhuji has already become dear by that time. Okay, so what acharyas explain is, it is not wrong to be compassionate, but when you lose sight of reality, what happened was he became materially compassionate and he lost sight of reality, and he allowed his material affection for the deer to cause him to become distracted from his spiritual discipline. Yeah, so he shouldn't have that. Beyond a particular point, it is, he shouldn't have allowed himself to get attached to the deer. That he saved the deer is not the problem. He did the right thing. But then he became too intimately connected with the deer. He who has renounced a big kingdom became attached to the deer. And what does that mean? That means his consciousness is now not Krishna conscious, it's deer conscious. If he had remained Krishna conscious while taking care of the deer, by understanding that in the deer is the soul and is the Paramatma, and I have to focus on my sadhana and I have to not get distracted. If he had maintained that vision, but his vision went down to a level of material affection. Correct? Just like a grahastha. As a grahastha, we take care of our family. We can take care of our family by seeing these are all souls whom Krishna has sent to me to take care spiritually and take care of them, and one can take care of the family like that. Or one can say, this is my wife, these are my children, and take care of them. Both are taking care, but there's a total difference of vision, and the result will be different. You understand? So the problem is not with compassion, the problem is with material compassion. Material compassion can distract one from one's spiritual vision and from the sadhana. So ultimately for us, what is the guiding principle? What action will help us to remain Krishna conscious? if pious activities are going to distract us from our spiritual focus, then they are bad. Because material piety will keep us punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. The deer ultimately will meet its own destiny based on its own karma. He started thinking that he is the protector of the deer. I am the friend, I am the well-wisher, I am the ultimate. Which one is ultimately? You can do according to your capacity, but if others are drowning, you drown with them and say, oh, I am a great hero. That is not a heroism. He drowned himself, right? Spiritually, I'm saying. Because of his material consciousness. Does it help you understand?
Yes, correct.
So these are very subtle things. And these things only we can know what our consciousness is. We have to closely examine. And our spiritual teachers who are closely observing us, we have to take their guidance. Then, they will tell us, hey, you are getting... The problem with Bharat was, he was not realizing he's getting distracted because he had no association. If he was in the association of devotees would have told him, Prabhu, you are not doing your sadhana, you are getting too involved in deer. I will take your, I'll feed the deer. You take your... Why you are thinking of the deer? During your meditation also, you are thinking of deer. Correct? Like we are doing japa, but we are looking at our handphone every few minutes. So he was looking at the deer every few minutes. So I don't know what, we cannot become handphone, but whatever we are thinking of in the handphone will become. So Krishna conscious, absorption in Krishna, very important. Okay. Thank you very much. The Prabhupada ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. I'll see you all on.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you and happy Akshaya Tritiya.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Hari
Krishna,
Bo.
Prabhu.
Ashwin, Ravindra, nice to see you. Nice to see everyone. Siniji, Tarun, Shalini.